following podcast may contain adult language and an abundance of superpowers. So get ready, nerds, because we're talking about the Nevers. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I am Juju, and Alex had to leave with a family requirement. So I'll be hosting today awkwardly, and with me is Tom.
Hey Jude.
Hi.
How you feeling over there, kiddo?
In
the hot seat.
Hot seat.
Hot seat.
And also with me is the love of my life, Matthew Kadish.
I don't think I'm going to have that title for too much longer if I keep making you host the show.
Yeah, I really don't like hosting. So we're going to be talking about the Nevers today, Joss Whedon.
Which I think would be in your wheelhouse because you're a huge Buffy fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Buffy. I rewatch the entire series usually once a year. And when I saw that this was... So when we first watched the preview for it, the trailer for it, I thought it looked good. And then I found out it was a Joss Whedon production, and I was very interested. So we watched the first 2 episodes, and I'm into it. I like it. What do you think?
I'm into it too. I'm surprised at how good it is. Mm-hmm. Like, Joss has gotten kind of like a bad rap recently, people coming out against him. Yeah. And he's kind of, in fact, they like fired him from the show after the first season was finished. And
off of this show?
Off of the show, yeah. Oh. So he's not going to be involved in future seasons.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. But, he directed the first 2 episodes, and this is, just by watching it, this is a Joss Whedon show through and through.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Knowing that he's not on board for season 2 makes me not want to invest too much in it.
But, Jane
Espenson
is, still like a big part of the show. And I think like she wrote the second episode, and that second episode had some of the best like dialogue I think I've heard in a long time from a TV show.
Yeah. And they collaborated a lot for Buffy and also for Angel.
But HBO has definitely walked back Joss Whedon's involvement in the show, at least in the marketing. Like, you don't see him in any behind the scenes stuff. They don't mention him.
That's a shame, because I don't see anyone firing Tarantino off of anything.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think Joss has made...
Well, that's different.
I think Joss has made a lot of enemies that Tarantino doesn't have.
True.
But watching this show, we did a trailer reaction to this, and the trailer looked good, but the show is actually much better than the trailer made it out to be.
I agree. Tom, you're not a fan of this, are you?
No. I'm not a huge Joss Whedon, and Buffy's fine, but the whole thing is just it's okay. Girl power's fun. It's okay. There's obviously evil white men, and the women are trying to overthrow the evil white men.
That's true.
But the most evil white man is the bad guy from Preacher. So I'm super into it just because he was so good in Preacher.
Hairstar.
Yeah, Hairstar. What's the actor's name? Anybody know?
The actor's name, Pip Torrens.
Yes, that's it.
Yes.
It's a weird name. He's super evil.
I love his name. It's such a British name.
And he's so good as a bad guy.
His delivery is so on point.
Yeah, like he's up there with Charles Dance in terms of like bad guys, like actors who were just perfect bad guys.
Yeah, his comic timing is good. Mm-hmm. He's evil. He's apathetic.
He was hilarious as Hairstar in Preacher.
Oh yeah. Oh, when he gets raped, it is the funniest thing I've ever seen. He's like, well, this might as well happen.
And Jude and I recently saw him in the Poldark show where he played a bad guy as well.
I feel like
it's a British drama.
I feel like he's typecast a little bit on that one. Like he needs to branch out. He's getting a little Harrison Fordy on me.
And the girl that plays Mary, the girl that sings, she was also in Poldark.
I was like, is it, you mean broke ass Anne Hathaway? Or
how dare you?
That's all I can think about the whole time. It's basically Anne Hathaway.
No, that's the main character.
I know, that's Buffy. So that's Buffy. And then there's the person that creates the inventions, and it's all very Joss Whedon.
Yeah, it's very Joss Whedon.
I'm not hating on it, but I'm also not a Joss Whedon nerd. So it's okay to me. Okay. It's okay. I'll keep watching. It's okay.
So what did you think of the first episode, Jude?
I was into it. I wanted to see where it went, and when it was over, I wished that I could marathon it.
Yeah, so we're introduced to our main character, Amalia True, or Mrs. True, and her friend Penance. Who's
Molly to her friends.
Yeah, Penance is the inventor lady, and then we have the rich woman who's kind of like the patron of the orphanage for
The lady in the
touched.
wheelchair.
Yeah, her name is Lavinia Bidlow, and she has her brother Augie, who's
Okay.
kind of like a wet noodle in British society.
That's a very wet noodle name.
Yeah,
Augie.
Augie. And then we have I believe he's a lord. I could be mistaken, but Hugo Swan,
Yes.
who's like the libertine. He's like the guy who's just, I'm gonna fuck everything, type guy. My favorite character, Frank Mundy, who's the police officer.
Okay.
And so like it's basically it's kind of interesting because it's kind of like almost like an X-Men type show,
Yeah.
where all these women get superpowers and some
It's
guys.
like old timey X-Men.
Yeah, and Victorian era, which is always very interesting.
Otherwise known as old timey.
Old timey, yeah.
Back in the day.
No, that's a little more recent.
This is set back in the day, y'all.
But the show opens. The first episode opens with we're briefly introduced to all of our characters before whatever happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a musical montage where we see all these people. And it wasn't until my second watch where I truly appreciated the opening, because the first time, like, you don't know any of the characters, you don't know what's happening. And then we see Amalia True basically try to kill herself by jumping into the Thames, I think it was. And then it cuts to like 3 years later and she's alive. And there are these people called the Touched, who are people who have like these new powers that just kind of came out of nowhere. And she runs an orphanage / shelter for these people where they can come and kind of not be harassed and learn to use their powers and stuff like that.
A school for wayward girls.
Something along those
Something
lines.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's like an orphanage, but no one's trying to adopt them.
yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's kind of like people put their kids up for
They're just
adoption.
doing,
Yeah.
they're doing CrossFit in the courtyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you got that going on. Then there's like a serial killer named Malady, who's also touched, and they've got like a special police squad trying to track her down. And then you have, Lord Masson, who's the Pip Torrens character, and he's kind of like among the British upper crust, like I guess ruling class. And he sees the Touched as a threat, and so he's coordinating with his other kind of like rich white guys to basically kind of declare war on the Touched and take them out. And so like you have all these different factions that are introduced in this first episode, and I thought it was really interesting. And then at the end, we get to see what actually happened to give people all these powers. And there was like this weird spaceship that kind of came
It's
out
like
of nowhere.
this alien.
It's like an alien robot fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like jizzes out.
Yep, that's about
some
right.
superpowered sperm,
Mhm.
and whoever it hit, they got superpowers.
Yeah, so like this space seed, well, it hit a bunch of people who didn't get superpowers,
Yet.
but
Yeah.
but so like Lord Masson, for instance, he was out when it was coming down.
His daughter got hit.
Yeah, and his daughter died, I believe.
Okay.
Like he watched his daughter die, and so I think that's one of his motivations for being against the Touched is that thing. But one of the interesting things is that as soon as the spaceship or whatever it is crashes and is out of sight, everyone who witnessed it flying over forgets about it except for Malady.
Mm-hmm.
And so like she's the only one who actually remembers what happened to give everyone their powers, and she believes it was God that she saw. And that's part of why she's crazy. And
Well, she was already crazy.
yeah. And in this episode, we're introduced to this like secretive like group who are trying to kidnap the Touched that Amalia and Penance kind of have a run-in with at the beginning of the episode. And then Lavinia Bidlow invites them all to come to the opera because she's trying to get polite society to accept people who are Touched. And so she wants them to come to these, big events. And while they're at the opera, Malady and two of her henchmen appear and basically just like start killing a bunch of people. And we're introduced to Mary, who is this singer, performer. And it turns out that she's Touched. And when she sings a song that only the Touched can hear, and it fills them with like hope and good feelings.
Yeah, and like this magic light settles on all of the touch, so you know immediately like who all at the
Yeah.
opera has these powers.
And it turns out Augie is actually touched too.
Yeah,
and
so
that's revealed
there's
there.
several people who are in hiding of being one of the touched.
Yeah, and so the first episode ends with Malady kidnapping Mary from the opera. Amelia True trying to go after her to stop her. They have like a bunch of fights. She runs past Hugo Swan, who has his dick out. He's having sex with
He's just banging bitches in the back.
Yeah, he's having sex with a performer.
He's just being cool, man.
Yeah, he's just being cool.
You know, like whatever, you know?
His dick, his choice.
Yeah, you know, whatever, right?
And that was pretty much the whole of the first episode. And I thought it was an interesting start to the series.
Yeah, I think they did a good job setting up who the characters are and what their motivations are. And I was excited to get to the second episode. So we get to the second episode and some shit actually starts to happen. And we start to learn a little bit more about like who they are to each other.
Yeah, and I was really impressed with the second episode. I believe it was called Exposure. And basically, we get more of the characters and more of their motivation. But the thing that really struck me was how good the dialogue was in the second episode. Like, there's a scene where Masson is confronting Swan in like a gentleman's club, not like a strip club, but like, you know, one of those clubs.
Club for gentlemen.
Yeah, a club for gentlemen.
They have
We smoke cigars and have brandies.
It smells of rich mahogany and leather-bound books.
Yes. And basically, you know, he confronts him about opening up this like kind of hedonistic sex club. And
is it just me or is that car going 4 miles an hour?
well, back in those days, that was fast.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You have to judge it in terms of how fast people can walk.
That's a good point.
We're watching the show as we're talking about it. But the scene where Masson confronts Lord Swan, I thought was probably one of the best written dialogue scenes I've seen in a long time, because Pip Torrens, like, he's such a good bad guy, and the character of Masson's just used to throwing around his weight and being intimidating, and Swan is just not having any of it. Like, he's not intimidated at all, and every time like Pip kind of jabs at him, he jabs right back, and it was a great back and forth. But then like at the end, Masson kind of comes out on top by kind of personally attacking him about like how disappointed his dad would be in him. And I just, like, when I saw that scene, I was just like, oh man, I missed this like Whedon dialogue. Like, this was such a good scene. Like, it was probably my favorite scene in the episode.
You know, I didn't particularly care for either episode too much, but the more I'm listening to you guys, the more I'm like, you know, I need to go back and watch that show.
I really like the scene when Mrs. True is trying to save Mary, and it becomes apparent that she and Malady have history.
Yeah. You're getting to the end of the episode where basically she tracks down where Mary's being held.
And this whole time she's been having visions of her fighting with Malady.
Because that's true superpower. She gets flashes of the future.
Yeah. So like for the first and second episode, like Malady is the villain, and Mrs. True is trying to defeat her, and she goes to the opera and she's trying to like save Mary before she gets abducted, and she fails and she fights with Malady, and then she finds Malady and she's still trying to save Mary, and then there's this whole subplot where she kidnaps her best friend. Anyway, and like this whole time she's been trying to like defeat this villain, and then it turns out they used to be close.
Yeah, it was an interesting
revelation. Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that she didn't recognize her, if they were like that close, even if they were younger. But
I got the impression that she always knew who she was, but didn't know if Malady knew who she was to her.
I didn't get that impression at all. But one of my favorite aspects of this episode was the introduction of this character named Desiree, who
the hooker.
Yeah,
I love her.
Yeah, so she's like a plus-sized hooker, but her
character. Oh yeah.
But her turn, which is what they call
her
their powers.
superpower, is like this truth serum. She just has to be around you, and you just start if you're vomiting all of your feelings and emotions and what you really think.
Well, no, like if you get agitated or in some way, her turn triggers you, and you just can't stop talking, and you just start stream of consciousness, saying what's on your mind, talking about everything. And it works on both men and women. And when True finds that, because Desiree comes there with her kid looking for some shelter because one of her clients thinks that she knows too much and wants to kill her. True takes her to the police station and sets her.
Just has her sit there.
Yeah. And basically she takes her to see Mundy, the cop, and gets to really learn Mundy's real motivation, which is that he used to be engaged to Mary.
Yeah.
And he genuinely wants to help save her as opposed to just catching Malady.
One of the touched.
Yeah.
She was worried that this whole investigation was a way to make it known that the touched are bad.
Yeah. And it's funny because after she sends Desiree out of Mundy's office, Desiree's just sitting there and the police are just like, oh man, we got 3 confessions in a row.
Everybody's confessing to everything.
Confessing. I thought that was a really fun, clever.
I thought it was fun.
And the actress that they got to play Desiree, I think nailed the role really well. She's just she's like, yeah, this pussy's good. Yeah.
She's kind of reluctant and doesn't even really realize what's happening. She's like, hey, I don't know what it is. These people just tell me stuff.
Well, part of her thing is she just doesn't pay attention to what people tell her, so she forgets all this.
She immediately forgets all of this really important information that could destroy people, and they're all like, "Oh shit, I've told her too much. Now I have to kill her." And she's like, "I don't even know what you told me.
I don't remember."
Yeah, she's like, I'm just here for the fucking.
And we also get to learn more about Augie's power, which is basically he can warg into birds and stuff like that.
He's a green seer.
Yes. Yeah, a green seer.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he also has a bit of a love connection with Penance.
Yeah, that was cute.
Because basically Lavinia Bidlow, she throws a party. And this was another great example of dialogue where she's like, doing nothing is how we panic.
Yes.
Rich society.
Yeah. So basically everyone is reeling from this massacre that happened at the opera, and the lady in the wheelchair says, okay, well, let's throw a party. And Penance is like, oh, but I thought that we were all very upset about what happened at the opera. Aren't we panicking? And then the lady in the wheelchair says, this is how we panic.
Yeah. So basically she throws this little soiree at her house where she invites a bunch of people to come meet some of the girls from the orphanage because she wants them to kind of not be alarmed by them, get to know them.
Normalize.
Yeah, normalize them.
Make them into party favors.
Exactly.
Aww.
And while she's there, Penance kind of goes off with Augie, and he starts kind of, telling her about...
And they're just having the nicest conversation.
And there's totally a love match going on there where she's kind of into him.
But they're not even flirting or anything. No. They're just enjoying each other's company.
No, but mentally they're kind of on the same level where they're just fascinated by geeky stuff, and they're connecting with each other over it.
They genuinely like each other.
Yeah, I think in 1890s England, that is called courting.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, the funny thing is that his sister, Lavinia, the woman in the wheelchair, she notices this, and
she makes a big deal out of it.
But what was funny is it wasn't so much that that Penance is touched; it's that she's Irish, and she's like that we would never accept this union, especially from an Irish.
Yeah, she's got too many marks against her.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things about this episode is it opens up with a new girl that we haven't seen before. She's her power is when she touches things with her bare hands, they levitate. And throughout the episode, we see her kind of searching for the orphanage, some type of sanctuary, because people are trying to track her down and
this gang that we met in the first episode that kidnapped the touched. They're kind of after her.
Well, just the police in general, because after Malady's attack at the opera,
they're cracking down on touched.
Yeah, the touched are kind of public enemy number one, and so the entire episode we're seeing her kind of run away from the police and friends betraying her and stuff like that, and then she gets kidnapped by the fucked up face men from the first episode.
Is that what we're calling them officially? Fucked up face men?
Yes, FU face men.
Mystery men was already taken.
Yeah.
So.
But the guys with the
eyes wide
faces,
shut party guys.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
And the dude from American Horror Story.
That was the same
Evan
guy,
Peters?
right?
Yeah, not Evan Peters, the old guy.
Yes,
Yeah.
that guy.
Same guy.
Yeah, he's
the guy with the melted face in the first season.
Yeah, he's like the like the Dr. Frankenstein. He's an American doctor who's like
Yes.
experimenting on the touch.
Oh, and Lavinia hates Americans too. She's very like British only.
Well, it's revealed that his organization, who's been like kidnapping these touch people and experimenting on them, is being run by Lavinia Bidlow.
Who also is the
matron,
matron of the orphanage.
Yeah.
So
she's
playing double dipping.
She's playing both sides
Yes.
of the fence here. And we find out at the end of the second episode that they found the God machine that gave everyone their powers buried underneath the city, and it turned back on.
Oh.
And so like they're like, ooh, what does this mean? And
Yeah.
and Lavinia, the first thing she says when she comes out is like, she's like, this means war.
Yeah.
And she was kind of reflecting what Masson was saying in the first episode, where we were attacked, by something that gave people these powers. That this is not a gift. This is a opening salvo. So like, I was actually really impressed with how many like, oh shit moments we got throughout this episode, where you get all these plot twists and turns. It almost feels like this would have been the stuff that you reveal in a season finale.
Yeah.
And we're getting it in episode 2.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this series. And if it just stays exactly where it is right now, I'll be so happy. Like, it doesn't even have to get better.
Tom, what do you think of this episode?
If we're still on the first episode, or are we in the second episode?
We're on the
episode.
second.
I don't remember the second episode as well. I was really dialed in for 1. 2, I was kind of checked out by then. Some of the stuff you guys are talking about, the machine turning itself back on, giving powers to people. There's this thing in for comic books. Since we're kind of been on that subject, is that the Earth is creating things to defend itself, and that's why you have superheroes, because it's actually creating them.
Oh, that's interesting.
So maybe this robot fish is yes, it maybe it's malevolent, maybe it's not, but it's giving powers to people for a reason.
Yeah.
And it could be really interesting to see how that turns out.
And there's also a real steampunky aspect to this show.
Oh, very
which I really
steampunk.
Yes.
like.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like we don't have enough steampunk stuff on TV, and it feels like this one's kind of like playing around with it.
And I'm really enjoying the fact that like the two main people, the Prudence and Molly, like they're not overpowered. They kind of have these weird random powers, but they make do with it. And like Prudence, her power.
You mean Penance?
Sorry, yes, Penance. It's confusing. Charmed. Penance, her power is like anything with electricity. So she's like an inventor, and she has these. She's very like kind of quirky, and
Yeah,
she comes
can
out
like
with these different inventions.
She can
and
see
stuff.
electricity. She can see how it like moves and like what it does.
Yeah,
And she's able to build stuff around that.
yeah, but like they've been in the middle of like fights and battles and stuff, and she's not good at that. Like she's just like, hey, I'm just the inventor. So I'm like really digging like that realistic aspect to it. Like Mrs. True is like the fighter, and she has like flashes of what can happen, but they don't always make sense, and she has to kind of figure it
Are
out.
there any TV shows that are very similar to this construct that you can think of in your head, just right off the top of your head?
X-Men?
I was thinking of Buffy, but yeah, very similar. Very similar.
You don't say.
You don't
made by the exact same people.
Yeah, you don't say.
Well, there's only like 12 different things that you can make content out of. So
I beg to differ.
But I'm digging the Victorian era.
Yes.
I'm digging
Yeah,
the
it's
steampunky vibe. I like this superhero aspect to it. Like it feels like Joss Whedon just took as many cool things as he could think of and just threw them into this pot.
yeah.
And the
He
characters.
was like, I'm really in the middle of a shitstorm right now. I got to produce something really great.
Well, all the characters in the show are actually really good. In fact, it reminds me kind of like what he was trying to do with Dollhouse that he couldn't do on like network television. It was much more
Yeah.
more adult, much darker.
I really liked Dollhouse, but it was a bit of a mess. But I stuck with it till the end.
I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that it was a Fox
Mhm.
thing. Because Fox just like messing up Joss's shows.
Firefly.
Oh,
Yeah,
love that.
they tanked Firefly and all that stuff. But this show feels like, the chains are kind of off, and he's set up like a really great cast of characters, and it's like a really cool scenario.
And it's really open.
Yeah.
Like you could be surprised down the road with a million different things, and that's always a good option.
Well,
Yeah.
even in, so like you said, like after 2 episodes, I feel like we've already gotten so many like freaking plot twists and reveals and stuff like that.
And we also know who everybody is.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things is like the trailer for the next episode because one of the things that they wanted to do when they rescued Mary was have her use her song to attract more people to the sanctuary.
Right.
But Mary, at least in the trailer, she's like, I'm not sure I want to do that because I don't trust anything that's going on here. And you have that Lavidia Bidlow kind of like thing where like, you know, she's not on the level. She's got like other plans that aren't humanistic for, you know, this orphanage. So like there's so much like drama left to be mined in this show. I'm like really like excited to see like where it goes. I think
Lavinia is just really pissed off that she's in a wheelchair. Could
be. Or it could just be that
what if she's like Professor X? You don't even know.
Actually, she's probably more like Magneto. All right. So, Tom, what would you give the first 2 episodes in terms of a rating?
It's a 3 for me. It's not bad. It's not super good yet. I'm going to keep watching and just be honestly, you guys kind of motivated me to really want to turn off my cynical brain and go back and watch it one more time and just really try to enjoy it for what it is. So I'm going to give it another shot and I give it a 3 for now, but you're right. There's a lot of potential in this show. It could be a lot of fun if it keeps in the same direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Jude, what did you think?
I am hopeful. I'm really enjoying it. It's been a while since I've gotten some good Joss Whedon content and you know, it's been a while. Like I love Buffy so much and I rewatch it all the time because there isn't anything like that. So I'm excited for what this can be. I'm hoping that it either stays where it's at or gets even better. So I'm excited and I'm hopeful and I'm giving it a 4 because I hope that there's room to grow.
Well, you know, it's funny because our co-host Alex, when he watched the show, he felt that it was very preachy. It was all like, you know,
he did say that. Yeah.
He talked about how like it was
very
a big,
much agree. Yeah.
Big feminist message and stuff like that. But in my opinion,
gotta smash that patriarchy.
Well, I mean, in Victorian era, like there was that, you know, gender divide,
women's suffrage
and class divide and stuff like that. And so like, I feel like a lot of the messaging isn't like it's period appropriate, you know, like where women are struggling to be accepted and minorities are struggling to be accepted and stuff like that, because that was just how that time period was.
Yeah.
So I didn't look at it as preachy. I just looked at it as appropriate. But overall, like I was very impressed with the dialogue. I was very impressed with the characters. I loved all the plot twists that we got in episode 2, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where it's going. I'm with you. I think it's about a 4-star series so far, and I really want to see where it goes.
Me too. The guy from American Horror Story, Dennis O'Hare. I had to look it up. It was bothering me.
Yeah, he's a great actor. Like he's one of those character actors. He's in so many different things, and he just disappears into the role.
Yeah,
he's great.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is our review of the first 2 episodes of The Nevers. So if you have any opinions that you want to talk about, if we missed something, pop it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, stay salty. Where can we find you, Thomas?
If you really want to look me up, I'm on Instagram. You can see me on there in Big T2681. Give me a like. Say hello.
Yeah, if you're into bowling, Tom really wants to start a bowling league.
I need bowlers.
Is that his turn? He's just a bowling guy.
Yeah. He's a super bowler.
Yeah, I don't. No.
He's an okay bowler.
I'm an above average bowler. It's above average.
Okay.
But that is true though. If anybody wants to bowl with me, I mean.
And Matthew, where can we find you?
You can find me at Matthew Kadish, Kadish on Twitter, and kadishbooks.com will take you to my Amazon page.
And you can find me at I am Jude Juju on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And stay salty out there.